Good afternoon, everybody. Please come forward a little bit. This is a big room. Looking at like all these empty chairs in the front is terrible. So welcome. I am not on this panel, but I am here to welcome you just initially and introduce this kind of panel. Pardon me? We have so much in common. But I wanted to welcome everyone here and then hand things over to Dave very quickly. I'm Laura Mann, and I'm on the board of MCN. And one of the things that we're doing this year at the conference is experimenting with some new conference formats. And this is the first year that we are doing Partners in Conversation, and this is the first session. There are 3 sessions on the program, and they pair museum people with commercial vendors to talk about a particular topic in the space. And it's a way of bringing in commercial voices into the conversation at MCN beyond the exhibit hall. And so I'll be very interested to hear from all the people in this session. In your conference surveys, please fill out your conference surveys, about what you thought of the session, what we could do differently or better next time in terms of formats, because we're very open to that. So without further ado, I'm going to thank you all for coming and introduce Dave Clarke from Synaptica.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, so we've got half an hour. I'm roughly going to spend about 10 minutes just telling you what this project is all about, a little bit of the how and what. Then I'm going to hand over to Rob from Gallery Systems, who's going to talk about some of the collections management systems integration aspects, and to Marianne from Bryn Mawr College, who's going to give you a real use case for what we're doing here. So that's how we've divided the time up, and want to have Q&A time for you at the end. So what is Link Canvas? Link Canvas is essentially an educational tool for doing a deep dive into cultural heritage artifacts as images. What we're able to do is ingest images. They can be standard definition or ultra high definition. They're converted into the IIIF format, which I can wax on about for a long time, but I'll gloss over that. We can also ingest linked open data ontologies and control vocabularies, and these are going to be essential to the way the system works for connecting one image to another. More about that later. Annotating images, semantically indexing them against control vocabularies, and then delivering a search and discovery end-user experience. So that's the what. I want to spend just a few seconds to talk about the how. So from our perspective as a software developer, how these systems work is as important as what they do. And there are 2 core standards that underpin Linked Canvas. One is IIIF for images. So images go in as IIIF. It means it's data portable. And it opens up a world of API access as well. If you're doing imaging, I would basically say go IIIF or go home and think about it, because IIIF is the way to go. The second area is all about the textual descriptions and the connections between them. This is 100% built on linked data and a whole slew of W3C standards that underpin that. So open data standards underpin the way we do what we do, and it is as important as the show and tell of the functionality. Okay, I'm going to just flip us now into some live systems. So 1 second. Okay, I've got an art image on screen, and the first thing that we want to be able to do with Link Canvas is to be able to describe what's inside the image, so sub-image level indexing. If you think about traditional indexing of images, you've got metadata and you've got concepts and they're attached to the image. We wanted to get deep inside an image, because inside an image there's a lot of details. If I just quickly flash up some things that have been identified here, Each of these is significant in their own right, and you might want to go and visit one particular aspect. There is a visual detail, and it in itself gets its own URI. It is an entity, a first-class citizen in the world of linked data. So all the visual aspects inside an image that you want to describe become first-class citizens. They get their own URI, and they're in our jargon here, they're a POI, a point of interest on the image. The second key thing is about conceptual indexing. I will switch to a different image here. Titian's Bacchus and Ariadne. This image also has defined features. So Ariadne here is its own entity. It's a point of interest, as is Bacchus. But we are able to conceptually index these, the painting as a whole, and also the entities. So if I turn on a concept map instead of the points of interest, we're now looking at the subject indexing terminology that is assigned to the points of interest. These are, if you like, the idea behind the image. They're the conceptual layer. And if I pan and zoom around this image, the concept cloud is going to change, and this is dynamic sparkle queries in linked data jargon that are looking at the coordinates, the visual coordinates of what's in view, and then comparing those in the graph to the concepts. Out of that, we're able to both see the concepts behind what you're looking at, but also these concepts are gateways. They're gateways to other things. So let's say this is definitely a painting about love. So I will select that concept, and these concepts themselves come from control vocabularies. And the control vocabularies are incredibly important, because the more you use authoritative control vocabularies, the more your work is connectable to other people's work at the conceptual level. So here, I clicked on love, and I'm sure the writing is definitely too small for you to see here, but this is an HTTP URI for the concept love in the Getty Art and Architecture Thesaurus. So this little bit of the painting was indexed to that concept. We're using a concept from Getty. The HTTP URI is a gateway into all sorts of other things. We can tap into, scope notes here about this concept. We could navigate other concepts in the Getty Thesaurus. But down here, we've got related images and pieces of images. So this painting, like all the paintings in this area, is full of symbolism, symbols. So up here, there is a crown of stars. That crown of stars is actually a wedding proposal gift from Bacchus to Ariadne. We have indexed that. Let me just flip to points of interest. I'll go to that. It's called the Corona Borealis, but it is indexed to concepts. Let me just find this one. So, wedding gift from groom to bride is a concept in an iconography control vocabulary, icon class. So that star cluster is indexed to that, and that becomes a gateway to explore other images. So here it's found a related image, and if I go to that, we're going to be going to a completely different space and a different painting, but we're going to be finding here we're in a Tintoretto painting in the Doge's Palace, and you can see, let me just zoom in there, you can really see the idea of the wedding proposal here. He's in this painting, he's handing over a ring, and there is the Corona Borealis in another painting. The gateway to this is control vocabulary. So an essential part of what we've done here is use these to make the connections. The back end of our system allows for any ontology to be brought in and modeled. So in the ontology management space, if you're working with CIDOC CRM, if you're working with Dublin Core, with whatever type of ontology, we can adopt and ingest those ontologies, and they become the logical structure by which you can organize your content. You can also bring in schemes, and these contain the descriptive vocabulary that are used to index the images and the points of interest on an image. So here we've got things like LCNAF, Library of Congress names, Library of Congress subject headings, Getty Art and Architecture, DBpedia, etc. Systems not limited by these. These are just examples of what you can bring in, as well as author your own taxonomies. So these are the tools for describing images and describing inside the images and linking between content that can be inside your own institution, but also where this will get really exciting is when one institution's data is linking out to another, which of course, if you're authoring in linked data format, you open the door for that. So that is an explanation of some of the fundamentals of what we do. We also have some really cool additional features, including guided tours. And I'm just going to say guided tours, and I'm going to shut up because Marianne's going to explain what they did at Bryn Mawr in a minute, and then we'll have a look at guided tours in action as well. So I'm now going to hand over to Rob from Gallery Systems, who's going to talk about the collections management.
We need to go back to the PowerPoint. I'll just get that side. Let you control that. Great. I'm Robb Detlefs from Gallery Systems. Gallery Systems does collections management. We have 2 product lines, TMS and eMuseum, and amongst the things we do are web publication of that content. And also, having been in that exhibit hall for many a year, one of the things that happens in the exhibit hall when you're not there is the vendors talk to each other because you need to do something. And it's a great opportunity for making partnerships. One of my early partnerships was with Dave Urbanek at Zoomify, and earlier this year he contacted me and said, hey, I'm working with this guy, Dave Clarke. We've added IIIF functionality into Zoomify. I think you guys should meet each other. We'd been using Zoomify in our applications for a long time. The idea of having IIIF and then linked open data as well was extremely appealing. So we started talking, and I was impressed with the functionality and immediately thought of a client who would also be impressed with this. I've worked with Marianne for years, building out their Web Kiosk and really taking full advantage of all of the content in the collections management system to get detailed bibliographic content on the page and provenance history and exhibitions and all these other wonderful ideas that she's always throwing at me, things I've never heard of, but it's fun to make it work. And the one thing that we hadn't really conquered was this level of deep indexing, being able to target those pixels on an image. She will be able to show you that. So really at this time, I would invite Marianne to come up and speak.
So at Bryn Mawr College, we have an art and artifact collection of over 50,000 items, primarily donated by faculty and alumni, and often closely aligned with areas of focus of teaching at the college. They're intended to enhance the educational mission, and as such are frequently used by classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level. To document and provide intellectual access to the collection, we use EmbARK Collections Manager and Web Kiosk. We are constantly looking for better ways to more clearly and accurately present the information about the collection, and tagging images is certainly one thing that we have been very interested in doing. Prior to working with Linked Canvas, the only tagging we had tested was Annotated, which enabled us to draw boxes around areas with text that appears as you mouse over the area. Would you mind displaying that? And we're going to show you an example of that using one of our objects. It's an attic red figure plate with a Kotobos scene by the Bryn Mawr painter circa 500 to 475 BCE. Thanks. So as you can see, this very simple illustration shows that the viewer has to mouse over the area for the text to appear, and that the area outlined is rather unspecific. When I became aware of the linked canvas software for tagging with linked data, I was very excited at the possibilities for using this to better annotate our images in our online database in a much more robust way. 2 graduate students helped me in annotating images for several objects, and when we had completed a few test samples, I shared them with several faculty members at the college, and they were very excited at the possibility of allowing students to use this software to annotate images for class projects, particularly as a component of an online exhibition. Students are often using Omeka, Scalar, or Neatline, or some combination of those for online exhibitions. What faculty like about this product is that annotation requires students to examine a text, or in this case, an object, closely and critically. This critical thinking process challenges students to wade through large amounts of data and to identify key points, and then to make decisions about how to most succinctly and accurately describe the object based on its historical, political, economic, or cultural context, or whatever context, depending on the theme of the exhibition. Anyone who has had to summarize a 2,500-word text in 100 words or less understands well the kind of thinking and decision-making required to reduce ideas and information to its most essential components. This type of learning exercise is also fitting for students who are studying humanities in a digital age. Annotation software allows professors to combine classroom content in humanities with the acquisition of technological skills. We've observed that students are great consumers of technology, but this doesn't mean they know how to create with technology. For example, they know how to navigate a website, but they don't necessarily know how to create one. Or they understand how to navigate already digitally annotated images to link to more detailed information, but they don't necessarily know how to create those annotations or realize the kind of work that goes into creating them. Having students change their role from consumer to creator requires them to actively think through data and own their conclusions about it, rather than to be passive receptors of information. Would you mind illustrating that with the tours?
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so when I was creating Linked Canvas, my thought was very much that this would be a tool that curators and art librarians would use to give an authoritative view of an image. And one of the nice things about being in conversation with other partners here is just getting different perspectives. And one of the first things that Marianne said is, we want to get the students doing this. We want to engage them in learning through doing, and it's enlightening to me. And what we're looking at here is a great example of that. So this is the red attic figure plate with Cottobos otherwise known as P95, which I've become very familiar with. So Bryn Mawr have annotated this with a lot of points of interest, visual details. I'll just quickly flash on. These are some of the details that they have picked out. They have described these as visual artifacts, the visual evidence, and then they have conceptually indexed these to the Beasley headings, which were ingested into the system as the reference vocabulary. But the really exciting thing is another layer of functionality beyond the semantic indexing of points of interest comes giving interpretive tours. So we have a tours tab on the system. And what you can do is, let's say you've got 20, 50, however many points of interest on an image, is you can put them into, I call it a playlist. You can basically create a playlist of points of interest on the image, and then the system will pan and zoom around, showing is everything. So let me just do that. We've got 3 tours that Bryn Mawr created. One is the narrative story of this artifact. What's the picture describing? The other is the artistic techniques, and another one is conservation aspects. So this really illustrates, different perspectives of the very same thing. So I go to the narrative story called The World of the Symposium. This is a playlist created out of some points of interest put into a particular order, and then multimedia can be associated with that. I'll set this going. This computer is not going to broadcast the sound, but let me see if I can.
The symposium was a drinking party, attended by aristocratic men. Symposia were generally held in the andron, the men's area of the household. The
Move it.
although typically
Move it forward.
a participant wears a himation or cloak
Point of
wrapped
interest
around
is
his waist
visited.
as he reclines on the couch. The
Okay. I think we've got enough of that. As each point of interest is visited, the system will pan and zoom to that point of interest, and it will play the associated media. If you want to do a voiceover yourself, just record it, upload it as an MP3. Same thing with MP4s if you've got video. You can also link to other sources. So if you have I'll just say Khan Academy video that you think is relevant, or something on YouTube, you can just pop in the URL of that associated media file and go outside the box of this system to reference that media content. So the guided tours really give us a way of creating multiple layers of interpretation and different perspectives on an image by just using and reusing the various points of interest that have been indexed. We can also divide these points of interest up by user community. So in the teaching environment, you could have a filtered layer of the points of interest annotated by a particular student or faculty member, or you can have different interpretive views of the same image. So once this stuff is all linked data and it's all connected in the graph, the ability to filter and slice and dice through that, the options become quite empowering. So I think at that point, what do we do? Yeah, this is a good time to stop. I think you've got an idea for what Link Canvas does. A use case from Bryn Mawr, which it's been a delight working with Bryn Mawr and with Robb at Gallery Systems on this project. I think open to Q&A on what we're doing, and for any one of us, anybody got any questions? Yeah, Laura.
I'm wondering about the kinds of classes and the kinds of teaching environments that you see students using this in, right? Because I see one example here, but I can imagine many others. So I would really like to hear from you about that.
Right. So right now, this semester, we have students in an archaeology class that are using this for an online exhibition, and that class is Ancient Greek Cities and Sanctuaries. And those students are each picking one object in the collection to do an online exhibition on, and if they choose to, they can use this as part of that. They can, insert the URL. They don't have to do that. Now, in the spring, there's a history of art class that it's been a year-long course mirroring the self, and it's an exhibition seminar. So in the fall, the students have been actually selecting the works and preparing for the exhibition, which will mount in the spring. And with the live exhibition, there will be a component that will be an online exhibition, and those students are being asked to each do one or two objects this way as part of the online exhibition. I've spoken with a number of other faculty members that are interested in doing it. It just doesn't necessarily align this particular academic year with their classes, but in general, the way they want to use it is to have students select an object that they're studying, and to do this for the object that they're studying to help them really learn more about it and to be able to understand the object in a more intimate way when they're working through the process where they have to essentially be able to teach someone else all of this information. And so, primarily it's in that context, but then what we're doing is we're taking these and we are also then putting that information in a URL on our website at the same time on Web Kiosk, which will then take public viewers to the tour, which is another great benefit for us, which is then, the public can use that as well.
Yeah, as, with a collection of 50,000 objects, you're not going to do this level of indexing on everything, but for the relevant objects, it's a really great thing. So we are able to save the linked canvas URL into the database. As soon as we have that, we can put the linked canvas icon on there. We can create a dynamic grouping from the home page. We haven't done it yet, but we'll direct someone to just the objects in the collection that have this level of indexing.
And I've got that on screen, Rob. So this is the Web Kiosk catalog record with metadata, and so there's all the metadata here, and there's the link through to the link canvas object that we were exploring there. And likewise in the link canvas, there is, if I go to the image metadata here, we've got a link back to the catalog management system there. And this is a sort of a really basic level of handover between two systems that's still treating them separately. One of the things that we would certainly imagine as this is adopted is the functionality that we're looking at here can of course be embedded within or under the hood of any kind of skin of an institution's own website. So it's not sort of you have to leave the system and go somewhere else, but in this this working example for today, that's what we're doing, is sort of just a handover. Yes?
What are the mechanics for actually defining these regions to become your point of interest? Because this one is quite complex, and earlier it was a square, so it's quite easy.
Yep. So how people identify a region will really depend on the type of effect that they want to go after. If you want to define a rectangular point of interest, it takes literally a couple of seconds. Drag the square and drop, give it a label, you've created that. If you want to create a shape like this, or like where I'd got the Bacchus figure isolated, or Ariadne, it takes a few minutes. I mean, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and you trace the outline of the object. If you are dealing with a small number of images that you're going in depth for, and you want a wow, what I'd say sort of a wow experience visually, where the aesthetic counts as much as the information. So, if we look at something like this, where we've traced this individual figure, it is a very, very aesthetic way of presenting and really capturing the figurative detail with its boundaries. And yes, it takes longer than drawing a rectangle, but in context, sort of roughly 5 minutes to do something where you've got a complex, irregular polygon.
So it's not doing edge detection?
Edge detection is possible. In fact, if you were to trace a shape in other tools like Adobe, we haven't productized this, but we have done a test. Like, could we trace a shape in Adobe and then import the shape? And we can. So, some of the tools that have been doing this for a long time, like the Adobe suite, have got a lot of capabilities there that are quite at a refined level. So there's nothing to stop combining some tools and using that. At the moment, natively in Link Canvas, no, we don't have edge detection. There's any number of directions we might go in terms of refinements. Our core effort has been get it in linked data, get it in IIIF, do it semantically with control vocabularies, and that's like the three sort of core pillars of what we've done. And there's a lot of exciting things that we can go in the future. Yes.
So we're an eMuseum shop. Can I stay on my website and use the collection search that eMuseum provides and get to this level of detail? Is that somehow indexed in my eMuseum account, or do I have to
Not-
jump people over to my account on Link Canvas?
We haven't done a direct integration with eMuseum yet, but certainly a lot of these same concepts would already be cataloged at the object level. So it does get you to the record, but then you would still have to do the
Click on the link to jump over to.
yeah.
Yep.
But it could be embedded.
Yeah, all these components, so this is the discovery panel here, which does all the searching and navigation and display, and the viewport here, which has all the visuals. These are components with APIs that can be plugged into other systems. So it is 2 o'clock. We have reached our half an hour, so I think we'll cut this off. Any more questions will be in the exhibition hall, Link Canvas, and thank you for your interest today.